T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Global Watchman News. I hope you guys are all doing well. If you are in the live chat, we just do ask that you keep it family friendly. There will be moderators in there to make sure that we stay within the terms of service put forth to us by the platform you're utilizing today. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a minute to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when we go live. So I was just looking up some videos to pull for a series that I'm doing. And I noticed I've had on my computer for a while the Secret Covenant, and I also have up in my saved right up on my I can look at it right here on my browser. I've got the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion as well. I'm planning on hopefully making that a series pretty soon. Going to be doing, you guys know when I do my videos, I do all of my own slides on it, the visuals. So I'm going to be putting that together hopefully here soon and getting that put out as a series, because the protocols, there's several. I mean, they'll break it down into different things. It'll be a very long series, but it'll be put on a playlist for you guys. So I recorded the Cedar Covenant for our Wednesday night shows over at the Rise of the New World Order. where myself and Eric Spitfire and Jeff Hayes are live on Wednesday nights. So I was doing that. So that's why I wanted to share that with you, because it's timely. It's something that's happening right now if you really listen to it. So, but I came across this one that I thought was quite interesting. It talks about a supercomputer that is predicting what is going to happen in 2040. Back when the internet was fairly new, and I'm going to say this was probably in the early 2000s, I think it was. They had a series, and I can't remember exactly what they called them, but they were like internet bots. And what these bots did is I don't know who, when I say they, I have no idea who they are in this particular incident, but they programmed them to search out the internet for chatter, and they could make predictions based on what people were saying, what people were searching, what people were posting, along with history. There was a lot of things that they were taking in consideration, and so I was really interested in these bots, and they falsely predicted the end of the internet, I believe, a few years ago. But there is a dead internet theory going around that I'm looking into before I present it to you guys, because it's actually a pretty interesting theory. If you don't know what I'm talking about, search out dead internet theory. So maybe these bots weren't far off. Maybe it really did happen and we are in something different. So I don't know. But this is a supercomputer supposedly that has predicted what's going to happen in 2040. So let's take a listen.
It's not some science fantasy effect from 2001. This electronic display, emanating from Australia's largest computer, is a picture of the condition, past, present and future of planet Earth. The program was originally devised by a scientist working from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Jay Forrester. It was developed under the auspices of the Club of Rome by an MIT research team to present a complex model of the world and what we humans are doing to it. The program, called World 1, doesn't pretend to be a precise forecast. What it does for the first time in man's history on the planet is to look at the world as one system. It shows that Earth cannot sustain present population and industrial growth for much more than a few decades. It shows that simply cleaning up our car exhausts and making some small effort to limit our families simply isn't enough. It's like an electronic guided tour of our global behavior since 1900 and where that behavior will lead us. Well, this is the printed version of what we've just seen on the television screen. What looks at first to be just a maze of computer characteristics is really a system of very simple graphs which project what's going to happen to the planet over the next 150 years if we don't do something drastic to stop it. Down the left-hand side of the graph is the date, 1900, 1940, 1980, 2020, right down to 2060. Now, each of these lines of letters represents a curve showing some aspect of the condition of the planet. The further out this way they go, the greater that figure is. The further this way, the less. For example, P represents population. So here it is at 1900, and then it comes up to 1940. It starts to take off. Here we are at 1980, up to the turn of the century, and then it starts to peter off. Let's now have a look at this next curve, the Q curve, which is the quality of life. And this is represented by, for example, the amount of space people have, the amount of money they have to spend, the amount of food they have to eat. Now, it increases rapidly up to 1940, but from 1940 on, the quality of life diminishes. And here we are about the turn of the century, and we come up to the year 2020, and it's really come right back. More people, of course, means that you start to chew up your supply of natural resources, And this is this curve here, the N curve. And it shows that slowly but steadily, the pool of natural wealth in the world, natural resources, minerals, oil, and so on, is slowly but steadily diminishing. So this is the situation. As population increases, the quality of life decreases, and the supply of natural resources decreases. But have a look at this curve here. This is called the Z curve, and it represents pollution. Now, predictably enough, as the population increases up to 1980, pollution increases. There's more rubbish. But from 1980 to the year 2020, pollution really takes off. This is assuming, of course, that we don't do anything about it. So the year 2020, the condition of the planet starts to become highly critical. And if we don't do anything about it, this is what's going to happen. The quality of life is going to go right back to practically zero. Pollution is going to become so serious, right out here, that it will, and at this stage, around about the year 2040, 2050, civilized life as we know it on this planet will cease to exist. Well, hopefully, of course, it won't be allowed to happen. But it's taken this kind of shock treatment to nudge governments into doing something, and slowly we're starting to clean up our atmosphere. We're starting to recycle our rubbish. We're doing something positive about population control. But so far, our efforts have really been just a drop in the ocean. The Club of Rome comprises some 70 men of widely varying backgrounds, but their common concern is that the world problems cannot be solved by individual nations. I spoke with Professor Hugo Thiemann, director of the Battelle Institute, Geneva, Dr. Aurelio Pache, founder of the club, and Dr. Alexander King, director of the World Bank and the United Nations OECD. Dr. King, now you're describing the world as a closed system where all these things are interrelated, and yet the government, the control of the system is by individual nation states. Now, how do you convince them to cooperate?
The sovereignty of these nations is no longer as absolute as it was. There's a gradual diminishing, whittling away of sovereignty, little bit by little bit, especially, of course, in the smaller countries where it's more obvious. But the bigger countries have to do a good deal of this by agreeing international arrangements for the law of the seas, or for the limits of fishing, or for control of the wavelengths in radio, and 101 other things. But especially in the technological field, I think this is going to be increasingly so because of developments next year. I was at an important meeting in Washington a couple of weeks ago, and Peterson, the former Secretary of Commerce, was saying the same thing from an economic point of view, that the general world economic situation, the interdependence of countries on their food and fuels and so on, is leading to an interdependence which has seeds of draining away of sovereignty within it. So I don't think one can envisage an idealistic of jumping to a world federalism or anything of that sort. But the building up probably in the next decade in a number of particularly sensitive fields like energy, raw materials, the use of the ocean, of a number of what not be ordinary United Nations type of organizations, but semi-management organizations. There'll be a great deal of consent in them.
Dr. Pache views the European common market as an elementary example of the kind of regional cooperative which is going to be necessary. What responsibilities does he see for Australia?
Australia, you are in a splendid position.
What should we do?
You have food, energy, space. You are distant from other centers, so you can, for a longer time, feel rather more independent than interdependent. But things of the world are going so fast that I think that an enlightened leadership in Australia should see down the road that Australia will have to lose some of its on self-decisions in order to acquire something else which may be purely political in very wide sense, or maybe also security.
The Club of Rome is reluctant to point the finger at any one nation. Yet clearly, nations like the United States, which consumes approximately 60% of the world's resources, will, in the club's view, have to accept a severe cutback in its voracious appetite. But the club's utterances are cloaked in a velvet democracy, in the hope that their facts will gently persuade.
We will ask who is making the decision and whether the decision makers of today, whether they perceive the problems, what kind of problems, and the interactions of the problems. That's a very pragmatic approach.
Has the time come, Dr. King, when we're going to have to say we can no longer entrust our resources and the exploitation of those resources to private enterprise? Has the time come when governments will simply have to take more control?
Simple nationalization and things like that wouldn't help at all, because we've got to keep an incentive approach. And many of the good aspects of private enterprise are very necessary here, but not in the old exploitative way where the market forces dominated the whole situation.
Dr. Pichai, can you tell me what my lifestyle will be in 100 years' time? What sort of car I'll drive, what sort of house I'll live in, what sort of food I'll be eating?
Probably you will have a smaller car. You will use more common transport means. You will work many far less hours. You will have a wider cultural possibilities that today. You will not be so much pressed by immediate needs, because through technology, organization of the markets, the basic needs will be taken care of. And I think that you will love nature and continue then what I think you are doing now to protect our environment, to avoid this man-made world where the creatures of nature, the animals, the plants, the green spaces, the wildernesses are bound to disappear.
To the Club of Rome, the status symbols of the year 2000 will be the inverse of today's. Prestige will stem from low consumption. That personal consumption will have to be less is plain enough. But for that privation to be seen as prestigious would seem to indicate some radical rethinking, at least for the fat cats of the planet.
So the Club of Rome, no different than all of the other agencies, alphabet agencies, all the ones that have the umbrella under the United Nations, and all of those secret squirrel clubs that they all have, where they gather together and they plan our demise and their exaltation. But we know that it's not how it's going to end. So they can plan away, they can do whatever they want. God created this earth to be self-sustaining, to be self-healing, to be able to provide for the population that God commanded back in Genesis to go forth and populate the earth. All of these crises are man-made, designed at fear-based mind control for the masses. And it works. You got people like Greta going around crying because of climate change, yet she takes airplanes and it's just it's amazing how easy it is to get people to believe lies. Anyway, so that was all I wanted to do real quick. I won't be live tomorrow night. I will probably be live on Monday night, though. I'm not sure what the topic is going to be. I've got a couple of things that I've been looking into. But tomorrow night will not be. My husband is changing his schedule a little bit this week. So I won't be live tomorrow night. But Ernie and I will be back on Monday night. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I greatly appreciate it. And remember, don't give these guys the powers that be, the energy. Don't give them, don't let them have power over you, because The spirit of fear is not from God. So with that being said, eyes open, no fear.